Welcome everybody to the Realistic Prepping Guide. So this is about winter emergency survival. So as you guys may know, this channel is specifically about realistic prepping. It's not about, end of world scenarios and things of that nature. I think it's totally, unrealistic. Very, very, very low likelihood. I want to be prepared for things that are going to impact me. So where I live up north, winter is very severe in certain cases. There have been blizzards. There have been times where I have been without power for 2 to 3 weeks. In one case, a number of years back. Some winters we don't have any issues at all. Other winters we do. So this is going to be what you need to think about and be prepared for a winter emergency. Now, keep in mind, I do live up north. If you live in the southern U.S., like in Texas or Florida, your winter preparations may not need to be quite as substantial, but you have other things you have to prepare for that I don't, such as hurricanes. So a good thing about this is a lot of these items are going to overflow into that and would be extremely useful. So that being said, what are some things we got to think about in a winter emergency? One is heat. Heat or cold is a major killer in instances where there's power outages for a long time or whatnot. People die quite frequently. Usually elderly or children may die if you lose power or heat in a blizzard. It can happen. Food. So you got to think about that. It's a survival item. Water. So you got to think about water. Where are you going to get your water from? Communications. So communications may be out. We'll talk about that. What if you're on the road when a blizzard hits? So, obviously everybody can have all these preparations at your home and house, but what if when that blizzard hits or a storm hits or whatnot, you're not at home? What are you going to do? Power loss and lighting. So things to think about. So, travel. So let's take a look at travel. I'm going to approach this from, you are out. We're going to start that we're not home. How do we get home? What do we do? So when traveling during the winter, there is a potential for getting stranded due to many reasons. So it can be a storm, right? You get a huge storm comes through. That's kind of the most common one is a blizzard. You have a mechanical failure. And this is also enhanced during winter. So, people tend to have more problems with their car during the winter than they do in the summer, simply because the cold is much harsher on the vehicle. Maybe something freezes, doesn't work right, or accidents. So you or other people. I guess I put you or other people. It should be you or other people. So you could get into an accident somewhere. Maybe it's really icy out. You're at a rural location and you slide off the road and you can't get your vehicle out. What are you going to do? Other people. That somebody could get into an accident and block the road. Where I am, maybe 5-6 years ago, tractor trailer jackknifed across the thruway and everybody else behind them got stuck. And it was a storm coming in and it created a huge mess on the thruway. They had to shut down the thruway and people had to stay, they were stranded for, roughly a day on the road because of that tractor trailer that went over. So even if you're safe, there may be other people on the road that are not safe that can impact you. So, when traveling in the winter, you should always keep your gas tank at least half full. You can use your vehicle to keep you warm. So you can run the engine every so often, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But you can run the engine every so often to heat the car up so you don't freeze. You should also tell us about your travel plans so people know where you are if you don't come home to expect you. And also keep a winter prep kit in your vehicle. This is really, really important. So if you're stranded, you want to have a winter prep kit. Now, we don't have to fill your whole car up with stuff or anything, but there are some basic items I highly recommend you keep in your car. And we'll kind of go over that a little bit. So a winter prep kit for your vehicle should contain a candle or candles. Those little teapot ones work great. So why would you want candles? For one, you can heat things with them. So you could put, run it in a little dish. I'd keep a little glass dish as well for it. You can, use it to heat your hands. But importantly, if you keep a little tin, like a little tin metal cup, even a little pan, small folding pan, you can use that to melt ice or snow, which will then in turn give you water to drink. Stable food. So I say stable food. such as granola bars, candy bars, something of that nature. It's cheap, small, compact. It's ready to eat. You don't have to cook it. So I guess it's prepared, stable food. Keep some water in your car. So there are some water bottles that are okay for freezing or cold weather. So if you get those regular bottles from a grocery store, the freezing and thawing will actually break the bottles over time. So they do have water bottles that are rated for frozen water. I would look into those. So flashlight. I like the LED flashlights. They last a really long time on a set of batteries. Perfect. So I also like to store the batteries in the flashlight backwards so it doesn't get accidentally turned on and kill the batteries and die. Blanket, a red or yellow blanket, any blanket is good, but a red or yellow blanket is best simply because it's visible. So maybe you're stranded in the road and they get emergency workers. It's going to be easy to see somebody under a red or yellow blanket. A small pan is mentioned above. Lighter or matches, obviously to light the candle. Fire can be useful in a lot of scenario. An extra set of socks, gloves, a hat. So let's keep that extra in the car. Socks are great, obviously, to keep your feet warm. You could throw an extra pair of socks on, but also, they make a great mitten. If push comes to shove and you don't have any extra gloves, you can put a mitten over your hands if you're hunkered down in your car and help keep your hands a little warmer. A shovel, so a small folding shovel is great. One of those emergency style shovels. That way to help you, move snow, etc. Medications, obviously, keep a couple, like maybe a day or two's worth of your medication in your vehicle. That way, if you do get stranded, you're not without like a life-saving medication that you need to live. Fluorescent sticks are great. So if you're going to leave your vehicle, which we don't recommend to do unless you have to, but if you are going to leave your vehicle, some of those little fluorescent glow sticks are great, especially at nighttime, because they can help somebody spot you, especially if visibility is poor, it's snowing, it's blizzard conditions. A light source. They make fluorescent ones, they make LED ones that are battery powered as well. Heat packs, those little foldable, hot hands packs, they're great. A bag of sand or salt, or even a bag of sand salt mix. You can put it in little containers too. It doesn't have to be a whole bag of it, but obviously the more you have, the better. But realistically speaking, I actually have a couple containers that were from cottage cheese, the big cottage cheese containers, and I filled it up with a 50-50% mix of sand and salt that helps give your tires traction and melt snow. And a backpack. Obviously, if you have to leave your vehicle, you want to be able to carry some things with you. So a lot of these things are actually stored in a backpack in my trunk. Alternately, they make those little storage bins. A lot of this stuff, minus the blanket, you stick the blanket back there, stick all this stuff in a storage bin. It's easy to get to. It's right there, and you can grab it and go and modify it. So tips for travel. So it's always best to stay with your vehicle if you're able to. If it's cold, the weather's bad, it's a shelter. It's going to keep you out of the wind, out of the elements. It might not be heated per se, especially if you don't have enough gas, you're low on gas. But if it is a shelter and will take a lot of the risk of being outside, out of your situation for you, or help you at least deal with that risk. If you do leave your car, have a plan. Leave a note on the car where you're going. So maybe a day later, 2 days later, when emergency personnel can get to you, it can say, my name is blah blah blah. I went headed here. So at least they know who it is. They know whose car it is. They know the person left. There's something there. If you are going to run the engine to keep your car warm, make sure you keep the exhaust pipe clear of snow or debris. People die, unfortunately, too often from running their car, and it gets pile up snow around it, and then all that carbon monoxide ends up, in the car, and they pass away. So you don't want to be, that person that happens to. Also, don't eat snow. Hypothermia can result from that. You're eating cold and just lowers your body temperature. That's another thing with the pan and the candle. So some signs of carbon monoxide poisoning as well. I put this little graphic here in pictures. So headaches, nausea, dizziness, breathless, collapse, or obviously loss of consciousness. You're not going to be able to do anything. But if you're running your car and you start to feel anything, headaches, dizziness, lightheaded, immediately shut your car off, roll the window down, open the door. I know it's cold, but you better off with a little bit of cold to let some air in than stuck in a car full of carbon monoxide. Let's see. So, other things to consider when traveling. So, it may be impossible to get to the store, or stores may be closed. So, if there's a really bad storm, they may have closed for the day in advance notice. So, say you think, I know there's a supermarket here or a shopping mall here, and I'll just walk there, and I'll be okay, and I'll be out of the cold, and I'll be in a warm building. Well, what if you get there and they're closed? That could be an issue. Also, if you are home and you want to go somewhere, say you're home, a big storm hit, stores may be closed, you can't buy supplies. So that's another thing. That's why we have to have some supplies at home. So as mentioned, you should have medications and other essential items stocked up enough to last at home. So you don't want to be on your last day of your heart medication, and then say, I'll just pick it up tomorrow, and then the storm hits. You want to have a good month supply of your medications at all times. Just kind of rotate through it. But that way, in the event of a localized disaster or natural disaster, you're gonna have enough medication to get through that. So, let's say you do make it home. Say you walk home, you're a couple miles home. You walk home, you make it there instead of staying with your vehicle. Or maybe you have to vacate your vehicle. You've been there for a couple days and you're running out of food and water, and you have to go. And you make it home or to a safer location. So you get home, it's very likely power loss. So it's one of the most common things that happens in winter. We've had so many ice storms here over the years, and as mentioned, I've been out without power for a couple weeks at various times. So, what does a power loss mean to you for your home? Most people think, I can't watch TV, and I can't do that. My refrigerator won't work, which doesn't matter because it's cold out. Blah blah blah. Well, what you got to think about is you're going to lose your heat in almost every case. At least general types of heat, main styles of heat, like a furnace. So furnaces that blow hot air, they have a blower motor that blows that air around. Well, the blower motor needs electric to run, so if the blower motor isn't running, your furnace isn't going to work. Same thing with the water style furnaces. So say, I'm safe, I got those, I have radiators, so that'll be fine. The thing is, the radiators, that water in the radiators gets pumped around by a pump, and that pump requires electricity to run, so you're going to lose your heat. Potential loss of water or hot water in general. So if you have an electric hot water heater, obviously if no power, it's not going to work. Your water heater may not actually run without electricity. It may not fire up. Also, there is a potential, if it's a larger scale power outage, that the pumping station, or if you have a well, your well pump isn't going to work, so you're not going to have running water. If you have municipal water, there's a possibility that either the sanitation for that water may not be working, so it might not be drinkable, or the pumping station may not have enough power, and it may stop pumping water. So that's an issue. Obviously, you're going to lose your lighting because there's no power. You can have potential disruptions to communication. So, a lot of people don't think of this, but your computer that you have running, your telephone, your cell phone, what are you going to do? How are you going to handle that when that goes out? So as loss of pumping as well is another item. So, if you have a basement, you have a pump in your basement to keep the water out of your basement. Well, if the electric isn't going to run, your basement may start filling up with water because there's nothing to pump the water out. So how are you going to deal with that? Inability to purchase food, gasoline, etc. So if you go to a store and they have no power, they don't have anything to run their cash register, there's no credit cards, etc., etc., etc. So you're stuck with cash only. If a store is even open. They may not be open because of no lights or anything for the store. Also can't purchase gasoline because, if the pumps run a lot more things than you think. If the gasoline pumps are down, they have power, they're not going to pump gas for you, so you're going to be out of luck. So what systems should you consider backing up? For one thing, it's if you have a basement, you want to consider backup pumping. They have different types of backup pumps um, that you can use. There's water powered, battery powered, etc. And a generator to run your furnace or a hot water heater. So, obviously, if you have a generator, you can get power to your furnace. You can then run your furnace and have heat in your house, which is a huge benefit. So, a couple different types of pumps. They have battery powered backup sump pumps, as well as water powered sump pumps. So this uses like a city water supply, so it doesn't need power. It can pump for months as long as there's water pressure, which may be something to think about. And gas generator, they have whole home ones that are great. They can just run and power your whole house, or at least the important stuff in your house. So lighting. So loss of power means a loss of electric lighting, as you guys know. Consider the following backups. Candles. You can buy large candles for cheap at a dollar store. Just be careful anytime you're using a candle. It is a fire hazard. Keep it away from curtains, flammable items. The ones that are fully enclosed in glass are the best because they really have a much lower chance of causing a fire or an accident. Flashlights. So look for LED ones and stock batteries. I have an LED camp light that runs on D batteries. That thing will run for 4 or 5 days straight, not being turned off without running out the batteries. I think actually it's rated for a week. But an oil lamp, kind of old school, but that's what people used many years ago for lighting in their homes, and you can keep that. It's cheap to do, and oil lasts a very long time. So communications are going to be down. So if you are in a power outage, you will likely not have internet. If you use like an internet-related service, like for phone service, like Vonage or some type of VoIP phone service, that'll probably be down. Cellular towers. So a lot of them have battery backup, but if it's a longer period outage, a cell phone tower may be out. So even though your cell phone may have batteries and are charged, it's very possible that your cell phone may not work. Speaking of cell phones, I recommend you conserve your cellular phone power. So just turn off the device entirely. So don't put it into sleep mode. Don't let it sit there. Power the whole thing down. Let it rest a day and then try it again. See if the cell tower is back up. But I try to conserve your battery power. And oh no, internet service down. I like that picture for whatever reason. So water. As mentioned, with loss of power, you may lose water. So your well pump won't work. Your municipal water may lose pumping power or lose proper filtration. So what should you do? So for water, I recommend you store 1.5 gallons per water per day per person. You can keep it in bottles, carboys, barrels, those water storage barrels. Also keep a jug of unscented bleach handy. You can get this cheap at a dollar store. The biggest thing is unscented bleach. It will purify water. Me personally, I have a pool. Now, I don't necessarily want to drink pool water, but if it came down to it and I had no water left, I could open that pool up, the edge of it, get some water out of there, try to boil it or put some bleach in it to purify it, and I'd at least have something that's, not going to kill me, hopefully, from drinking it. Know how your water heater can be used. Your hot water heater can be used. So most people don't think about this. Most people that have a regular hot water heater, not one of the instant ones or never-ending ones, but if you have a regular hot water tank, well, you have water storage sitting right in your basement or closet, whatever you want to say, in your home. So don't forget about that. That's depending on the size of it, 30, 40, 50 gallons of water you have sitting there. So in an event of emergency, what I would do is I would just shut off the water main to your house. That way, if any of the water starts going bad, like becomes unpotable because it wasn't being filtered right, it's not going to pollute your existing supply, and you can drain water down off your hot water tank. You have pipes in the walls, of your home that all has hot, potable water. So again, if you shut that main down, you can go to the lowest faucet, use that, open that up, and you can actually drain gallons of water down that's drinkable water that's sitting in your walls of your house. So that's one item to think about if you do lose water. So you also want to consider as mentioned, you have water pipes in the walls. What if it's freezing outside and you lose heat in your home? Well, another reason you want to drain that water down, put it in like a, you know, cups, a storage container, even an empty 2 liter bottle from like a jug of soda or something, is if that water freezes, it may break the pipes in your wall, and then that's a huge other issue you're going to have to deal with. So drain that water out, you have it to drink, and then on top of that, you prevent your pipes and your walls from freezing and breaking. Keep in mind, this is if you're going to be without power or heat for a number of days. So going on to heat. So lost heat can be due to a number of things. So we talked about power failures, but what if your furnace just breaks or the boiler breaks? Think about that. What if you have a gas failure or delivery failure? So what I mean by that is maybe a gas line breaks down the street or somewhere else, or maybe you have a major storm, right? And if you live where you have to have propane or a fuel source delivered, and they don't deliver it because of the storm, and you run out of gas or your fuel source for heat, what are you going to do? Do you have backups in place? So alternative sources of heat. Obviously, if you have a wood-burning fireplace, you can do that. That's an item that, obviously, if you have that, you should have a wood stock, and you're in a good position, really, in that case. Overall, that's probably the best of all the backup sources of heat. So you have electric space heaters. Obviously, if you run out of fuel because a storm came through and they can't get out to you, but you do still have electric, you can use electric space heaters. They'll definitely help keep you a little bit warmer, or quite a bit warmer. A kerosene heater, which is what I personally have as a backup. They're great. You can run them inside. Propane heaters that you can run inside. Candles are 150 BTU each for paraffin candles. I don't think you really want to try to heat your house with candles. It's not really realistic. Also, only heat up a smaller area of your home to conserve fuel. So if you're in a situation where you expect to be without power or be able to get to town or city for a couple weeks, you want to make your fuel and your heat source last as long as you can. So don't heat your whole house. Heat a small section of it and kind of hang out there. Play some games with your family or whatnot there. If you live alone, play with yourself and not that way. But just try to keep yourself mind occupied. So let's see. So for heat, never use these things indoors. Don't pull your grill in outside. That's a huge item for carbon monoxide. Now you can cook your food on your grill outside, just go in and out that way, but you don't want to bring your grill inside to try to heat your house. That's really a big no-no. Outdoor stoves, obviously, again, outdoor items. Ovens, burners, you don't want to really run your oven to try to heat your stove. Or I actually saw somebody that they brought a fire pit, like an outdoor fire pit, into the living room and tried to use that to heat their stove, or their house, I should say. Obviously, didn't turn out too well for them. You don't want to do that. Goes without saying. But just to make sure people understand that. So how much heat do you need to have backup? So obviously, when you're planning your backup heat source, depends on where you live. I'm assuming you live in the U.S. If you live elsewhere, you kind of want to find out, look at your local region and what you expect to have for heat. I live in that blue zone. So, to keep your home, and keep in mind, this is a heating range for a normal furnace. So a normal furnace is going to cycle on and off every so often. You don't necessarily have to have 50 BTUs per square foot for an emergency situation. The idea is to keep it warm enough that it's life preserving, not necessarily comfortable, like you're sitting down to watch TV in your underwear in the middle of winter. So heat, some different sources. Wood burning stoves or fireplaces, they're expensive, about $8,000 or more to install new. Have that done. You need to have wood on hand. A downside is it's bulky. It is also a downside is it's non-portable. Big upside is it can heat a significant portion of the home. So kind of thing to think about with that. So for backup heat, electric space heaters. They're cheap. They can be purchased, had for under $20, which is awesome. They have no fuel requirement that require you to stock any fuel, but electric is required. Also, electric tether limits options, so you can't necessarily toss it in the back of your car and take it somewhere and expect it to work on the road. Not that you would use a space heater in your car, but it does have to have an electric requirement. So if you use it, electric has to be there. Let's see, it's also very portable. So that's a plus. It's easy to move. You can heat small rooms with it. The average little space heater like this is around 5,000 BTU. So you're talking, maybe if you want to say 25 BTU per square foot just to keep it more comfortable. You're looking at maybe say a 400 square foot space, give or take, is what it'll keep reasonably comfortable. Kerosene heater. So this is what I choose. Affordable. There's many models between $80 and $120. So definitely more expensive than a electric heater, but it is still an affordable device. You're not going to have to drop thousands of dollars to purchase one of these. It uses kerosene as fuel, which is compact and easy to store. I store 5 gallons of kerosene. That's definitely enough to keep me warm. Cycling it on and off every so often keep me pretty comfortable. It's portable, but it can be bulky. So that heater on the right that you see in the picture, that style of heater, they're pretty big. The smaller Radiant ones in the left, again, they're a little bit smaller, but they're definitely more bulky than the electric heaters. Plus, you have to carry a fuel source with you instead of just plugging into a wall. The upside is it does not require power, so this can work at any point in time, which is great. Which is why I choose this for a backup. I don't want to depend on anything that requires electric. So it can heat several hundred square feet. Like the one on the right here, you can heat a 1,000 square foot space, to a reasonably comfortable and keep it reasonably comfortable with one of those. You want to make sure you have a little bit of venting because there is a potential for carbon monoxide. I recommend that you keep a carbon monoxide detector packed up with your space heater. That way you can run that, if you don't have that running all the time anyways, a little battery powered one, just to make sure you don't run into any issues with carbon monoxide, because that could be a big problem. Downside is they can smell. That's just something that is inherent with kerosene. They may smell. Most models of these kerosene heaters are 10,000 to 22,000 BTU, so they put out a significant amount of heat, especially compared to those little space heaters. Like the one style on the right, that thing is like equivalent to running 4 space heaters, so actually a little bit more. So it puts out a significant amount of heat, which is very nice. A propane heater, and again, this is affordable. There's lots of models between $80 and $150. It requires propane containers, so you can have ones that are those little 1 gallon ones or 1 liter ones, whatever it is. Those little like Coleman style propane. They make adapters. You can use a big 20-pound propane tank instead of a 1-pound tank. And again, they can heat several hundred square feet. Make sure to have venting. And common models range from 4,000 to 18,000 BTU. So pretty good range of power and heat output is available to you. So automobile, if your car is at home, so say it's in the garage or out in your driveway, and your heat's out, you don't have a regular backup heater source, well, guess what? You can hop in your car and run it to get warm. Again, make sure that you clear out the tailpipe area. If it is covered in snow, you want that exhaust to discharge from around the vehicle and not collect under the vehicle and then inside the vehicle's seating area. If it's in a garage, keep your garage door open. Make sure your tailpipe is not obstructed. And if you are going to take your car, run your car, bring your cell phone with you and plug it in. Might as well charge it up a little bit at the same time. Okay, so let's look at food next. So always keep enough food on hand to last in case of winter emergency. So as mentioned, I am planning for or being prepared for roughly a 3-week potential for a disaster from a big winter storm, losing power and whatnot. So I like to keep at least 3 weeks of food on hand at all times. Um, nice thing about refrigerator items is if it is the winter, and you're up north like me where it does get very cold, they can be kept outside in the cooler. One thing you want to keep in mind is wildlife. If you do have, um, wildlife that try to eat the food, maybe it's dangerous wildlife. Like if you live up north more, you have potential for bears or things like that. You don't want to attract those, so do keep that in mind. If you have a gas stove, you can use a match or lighter to light your gas stove inside your house. That's like the cooktop range. I don't think I would necessarily attempt to light the interior portion, but a cooktop range you can light with a lighter or a match. Alternate cooktops can be outdoor grills. Obviously, running it outside as mentioned, or a propane heater inside. So if you're running a propane or kerosene heater inside, I should say kerosene heater, like the one on the right, it looks kind of like this. I actually have one of these and one of these. I have one of both. But it puts a lot of heat out right at the top of it. It's like a convection style heat. So all the cold air comes down and cycles through, and the heat comes up here. I can stick a pot of water in here and pretty much boil a pot of water right on top of the thing and heat my house at the same time. Obviously, you can use an outdoor grill to cook stuff, boil water if you had to. Canned foods are great. So that's another big plus. They're easy. Most canned foods are ready to eat. They store for a long time, and a lot of times they're cheap. You go to like a Save-A-Lot, Aldi style store. Whatever the budget grocery is, like the off-name stuff. Who cares? Vegetables and corn and stuff. You don't really need brand name corn. So I recommend keeping 3 weeks of food on hand. And also if you're not sure how to start with that, I would buy extra of the things you eat, and this kind of rotate through. So when I go to the grocery store, I like to have baked beans and things like that. I love them. So during the course of a week, I might go through 2 cans of baked beans. I'll buy 3, and then the next week I'll buy 3 more, and so forth. So over time, I'm building up a small stock of items. And once you start doing that, you get to a point where it's easy to, once you have a 3-week food supply, all you're doing is 3-week, 1-month food supply, all you're doing is eating some of the oldest stuff and replacing it and putting it in the back and cycling through. So then it's no more expensive than regular grocery shopping once you get to the point where you want to be. So also, medical health supplies. You got to think about sanitary and health needs. So hygiene is really important. You want to stock things like dental care, soap, bandages, antiseptics. You may not be able to get somewhere if there's a bad storm. And likewise, stock medications. As mentioned, you may not be able to go to the drugstore and pick up your subscription. It just may not be able to be done. You want to be able to make sure you take care of your hygiene and whatnot during this downtime when there is a storm or whatnot. So it's really important to have those things on hand as well. Toilet paper, things of that nature. Everybody likes to focus on guns and ammo and 10,000 rounds of ammunition and 15 guns and whatnot. But the bottom line is that and those things can be good to have. I don't know if I'd ever want 10,000 rounds of ammunition, but those things can be good to have in a role, and they do fill a role if somebody tries to take stuff. Maybe its power's out for 2 weeks and your neighbors are starving and then you try to take your food. But you don't need 10,000 rounds of ammunition for that. Simply something simple like a shotgun and some buckshot. A few boxes of buckshot probably take care of you just fine. Be quite a deterrent. It doesn't matter if you get shot with 1 round of buckshot or 100,000 rounds of buckshot. You're not going to be in a good position. So, that being said, that is some of the most important stuff I think you should be prepared with, instead of focusing on guns and ammo and end of the world. Chances are that within the next 5 years, I will have to use some of these preparations just because of where I live. That's real life and what I expect to happen. And those are the type of things you should prepare for. Now, if you live in the South, and it's the winter season, you might not have to worry about heat so much. You might wear other items. I don't live in the South, so I don't unfortunately have any type of expert advice to provide to you. But in terms of specifics, I would look at what do you need on a daily, day-to-day basis to live and sustain yourself, and I would look at making sure you're prepared with those items. It's much more realistic that you at some point are going to need those items versus 50 guns and a bunker and whatnot. Chances are you're going to need to hang out at home for a while, have some water on hand and food on hand, and just hang out until normal services are restored. That's a much more likely scenario. So I thank you guys for watching. If you want to leave any feedback, please feel free to leave comments. I appreciate it. Constructive, negative. If you're just going to hate for whatever reason, I'll delete those. It should be a respectful community that we have here on the channel. Obviously, people helping each other out and giving tips. But if you're just going to pointlessly troll and swear and call people names, totally unconstructive, I'm going to delete your comment. But until next time, thanks for watching and have a great day.